All right, should be live. So, Adam should be hopping in any time now. All right, how's it going, everybody? So we got Adam in here. Sorry about the delay there. I'm being kind of a boomer. It's my first time streaming, so there's probably like 5 minutes of dead time before that video started. But how's it going, man?
All good, pretty good. How are you?
Doing well. How's it going, Samal? So, what have you been up to recently? Anything in the hobby? Picking up anything, or what have you been doing?
I picked up a few things. They're on the way. I don't really have as much to showcase as last time. Really, not as much. But yeah, if you have anything to talk about, or I know you sent me that list, I'm interested in talking about all that stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think last time we kind of just did like a big show and tell, but I think today just kind of have a little casual conversation about what's been going on, kind of just with the market and also kind of like how a lot of the things that we've been collecting have been doing. So like one thing about your collection, I know last time we had a live, you showed a lot of like ungraded singles and stuff like that. Do you tend to try and stay away from slabs, or was that just a coincidence?
No, that's I would say 90% of my collection is basically just raw or cracked slabs. I did show you a couple slabs. I think right now I have
Mhm.
about 15. I think in the future, as I make more money, I'll probably be buying some more slabs. But for the
Yeah.
most part, when I tell you, like I told you, like my number one collecting goal is just have all those EXs. Uh, I like binders, so just I to me the appeal of having all those EXs in a binder is cooler than having a bunch of PSA 8, 9s, and 10s and
Yeah.
just kind of displaying them. But then, yeah, it
Dude, the
just
whole
depends on the era.
I I'm glad you brought up binders because I feel like binders are like coming back. Like I remember I mean back in like 2012, 2015, that kind of time when I was first getting in like more seriously, everyone it was like binders was like all people did. But now I feel like when kind of like a lot of the money started coming into the hobby, things got expensive, everybody switched to slabs and it was like PSA or CGC or bust. But I feel like now that a lot of like the speculators have kind of left, it's gone like I've seen a lot more just like people going back to binders. I think binders are so much fun. I haven't been doing it very much, but I've started to now, and I honestly prefer it. It's like it's so much easier to like view a collection and stuff.
I'm a binder boy at heart,
Yeah.
and I've gotten into grading over this past like year and a half, and I think just to answer your question, I do think some people have gone back into binders, but I think sometimes when we get into these niches or just kind of getting really deep in the hobby, we kind of forget that I still believe that, and I think this is a fact that the majority of people are still binder collectors,
Yeah.
and I think that um, I think a lot of the speculators are just newer collectors. When they got in, the thing to do was to buy graded cards. So I think
Mhm.
as if the excuse me, if those people stayed around long enough, I think they would have started seeing the value more of binders. So yeah,
Yeah.
I would definitely
Yeah.
agree to you that binders are coming back, but I would say in the hobby as a whole probably still prefers binders over slabs.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think Samau, I'm sorry if I'm saying your name wrong, but he was saying binders like the pinnacle of displaying, and I definitely agree. Like, just if you show me 16 slabs of the base set hollows, I feel like it doesn't hit the same to me as seeing them in nine pocket binder sleeves. I feel like just seeing a binder of like a complete set is just so satisfying to flip through. Where like I mean I would say the last 3 years I've been doing mostly slabs just because like I don't know, I had this idea that like, oh, I need to protect everything, like everything needs to be encased. But then I realized that unless something is like in the triple digits in terms of value, I feel like having it in a binder just like makes it, I don't know, makes it feel more like a collectible.
You wouldn't have a couple $100 cards in a binder? You don't trust yourself that
I
much?
don't trust myself.
What?
I was there was one card I ruined it wasn't because of a binder, but I was like, "Oh, this card," like, I think it was a Shining Gyarados from Neo Rev, and, it looked clean to me, and I graded it with PSA, and it got, like, a 6, so there was clearly some indent somewhere that I didn't see, and I was like, "Oh, well, like, now I'm just gonna crack it because I don't wanna look at a PSA 6." So I was gonna crack it to put in a binder, and
Uh,
as I was cracking it, I screwed it up, and I, like, messed up a corner, and now it's probably a PSA 1.
what did you
So
use? What did you use to crack it?
I was using I think I was doing everything right. I was like I clipped the corners with pliers, and then I was trying to wedge in a screwdriver, like a flathead. My problem was it was really stupid. I was like, instead of going in like sideways, I
You
went
were going
down,
directly on the
and
card?
then it slipped, and I was like, as soon as it did it, I was like, that was so stupid. Like I don't
For
know, but
for the
at the
future,
time, it
I would recommend a butter knife. I've used a butter knife on 99% of the slabs, no problems at all.
really
And then I just used like a couple weeks ago, I used a flathead to crack out I mean, thankfully it was like a Crawdon PSA 8, a Crawdon EX. But yeah, I mean, it was like I thought like the head was only like this big. It was like a really stubby one, and I thought I wouldn't, and I just destroyed the corner. And now it's PSA 5 at best. But
nice.
yeah, I'm
There
only
you go.
using butter knives from now on.
That's a good idea. I should have done that. See, because like I saw that video of like Radar. Or did you see the video where he was like cracking slabs on the sidewalk with his foot? And I was like, ah, if he's doing that without messing them up, I think I could handle it with a screwdriver. And apparently not. But yeah. So just like because that was my first question, honestly, about just like kind of how people were falling in love with binders again. And I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there. And kinda going into that, like, how do you view when you're, like, valuing, something to buy, how much is the condition rarity important to you? Like, at what point do you go from a 10 to a 9? Is it, like, a price point, or is it just kind of like, do you look at, oh, like, do you look at populations? What's kinda your thought process when deciding a grade to go after?
Sorry, I kind of went to go look at the chat for a sec. I missed the
Very good.
first part. Was this for just cards in general,
Yeah, just,
binders,
like,
or
if you are going for, if you are going for a slab, what how do you decide what grade to go after? Like, do you is this oh, like, is it a certain price point where you switch between, "Oh, now I'm gonna go from a 9 to a 10 because it's cheap enough?" How do you kind of value those?
that's a great question. I would say there really is just a myriad of kind of pieces to the criteria for me for what makes me want to pick a slab. I think the number one that I've really decided on, at least the two biggest parts of my, or the three, I would say, that make me like what I target when I go for slabs. One is something that really is just a pinnacle of the hobby for me, just something that I think 20 years from now, when I look back, I'm like, yeah, I remembered when I got back into Pokemon, or that was a time when I, really started getting more serious into the hobby. That's one. And for that, like, if I can afford it, I'll go for the 10. Now, right now, I only have one of those cards, which is, I guess I can show it off. It's already being pumped. Well, you know what? I'll get back to them later. We can get back.
This is a stream for pumping, just whatever you
I
want.
mean, it's the. I mean, it's a little spicy. We're gonna probably talk about this set at some point, so I'm gonna whip it out because I think you've talked about this set, so I'll leave it on the side. But a big one is so as I got into Japanese cards more, I realized that I didn't really like cards that just like a singular Japanese card that just sat in the binder. It kind of stuck out from everything else. And if it just has a nice display, so here's a good example here. Like I bought this.
Ooh,
This is the
time-space distortion?
Yeah, this is I think the secret rare from Mysterious Treasures, and there's no speculation on this. I think the English version is a lot more expensive. There's a Japanese black promo version of this. I got this in a 10 because I could afford it. It's 50 to
Mhm.
$50. Now, if I put this in a binder, I don't really have many Japanese cards, so I just feel like the value, it's one of my favorite cards from the Diamond and Pearl and Platinum era. So just standing it up somewhere, I think the value of just standing it up on a display is a lot more than in a binder. I feel like in a binder I kind of forget about it because I'm not trying to collect all the Diamond and Pearl secret rares or
Yeah. That makes sense though, because if it's like a one-off thing, it doesn't make sense to put it with 8 other cards that have nothing to do with it. So yeah, I definitely feel that.
Yeah, like some of the Versus series I think I showed you in vending last time. I don't not for a while probably. I just don't plan on. There's just too many cards in that set where for me to collect the entire binder. So I just got the tens of my favorite ones, and
Hmm.
yeah. So
Yeah, yeah. I
what
think.
about you? I mean, that
I
like
mean, I'm I don't really necessarily have a specific rule about when I go for a 10 versus a 9. It's kind of just like I more just see what kind of makes my wallet happy while still accomplishing my goals. Like I don't really go after tens unless it's ultra modern. Like even with EX era, um, I kind of do like quantity over quality, which is usually the opposite of what people say to do. But like I would, if I see, oh, a 10 of this card is $300, but a 9 is 75. I'd rather have whatever 3 or 4 other cards that I can still get in a showroom kind of quality as opposed to the 110. But if I grade a 10 myself, I usually kind of keep it just because it's just a good memory. Like I don't have any EX era 10s unfortunately because I've never graded one myself, but I have a few WotC Japanese 10s and stuff like that. But what you're saying about how like a random Japanese card sticking out in a binder doesn't really make sense. I totally agree. Like I've gotten into like Japanese Poke recently. Not gotten it. I've bought like 3 cards. I'm not like stonking out on them, but those are some cards that I'm buying in slabs just because on a binder page it doesn't really work. I don't have a binder that would even go in. So yeah, so like I think I showed this one. I have little like the Pokekaion like because just like the hollows are so unique in this set.
I mean,
My
I
my
love
cards are
Jirachi.
terrible.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it
What
makes a
year
little
is
yeah.
that?
2016. I think this was it Generations? Was it the Japanese version of
That's actually. I
Generations?
was just gonna pull out an example of that of something that sticks out of a binder.
You got a binder of them?
Yeah, I just have. Ooh, I think I ended up just throwing it into my alt arts and full art section, but it
Mhm.
just really just like if somebody wanted to get this in a slab for display, I completely
Ooh, I love that.
understand.
Yeah, that.
Yeah.
I was looking at that in a 9 for a while. I haven't pulled the trigger yet,
Yeah,
but
I mean, I
definitely
got
will.
this for $20, and
Yeah.
this is probably a PSA 8 at best, but still. I guess
How
that's
much
one thing I kind of want to ask you about is um are you really not like how do you feel about PSA 8s? How do you feel about lower grades when you're buying? Not just in
I
your
actually
collection, nostalgia aside.
you're saying what I'm buying in terms of like a financial kind of
Yeah, because like
um
it seems like 9 is your sweet spot, and like if you grade a 10, you'll keep it.
yeah.
But I'm kind of interested in like, is there anything where you're, it's a really if there's something that you want that's really expensive, are you someone where you might just buy the raw, or are you going to save up for the 10? Are you going to try and get a low auction? How do you approach that?
I would say the grade matters less to me. The rare absolute a card is like if it's a card that's super popular but is difficult to grade, like sorry, super abundant, but it's hard to grade. Like there's thousands and thousands of this card out there, but there's only a few that are in a 10, I'd be more likely to go for a higher grade. But if it's a card that's like rare regardless, the grade doesn't matter as much to me. Like an extreme example, this would never happen to me, but if I were to like buy an illustrator or buy another trophy card, I feel like the grade on a trophy card is almost like irrelevant to me. Like if I look at a PSA 3 illustrator and a PSA 9 illustrator, I feel like I have the same like appreciation for it. But if I'm looking at some random like I don't know, like a modern card, like a Scream promo or something, a card there's thousands and thousands of, I'm much more likely to care about the grade. So I guess like I would say like for a set card, 8 is probably the lowest I'd go, unless it's like first edition base hollows. But yeah, if you're talking promos, I'll take 8s, I'll take 7s all day. Like one of my favorite cards, let's see if I can find it really quickly. Is sorry, I'm very ill prepared here, I guess. Okay. I'll just yeah. So it's the Shining Mew Korokoro promo. I've showed it in a few videos. That Shining Mew Korokoro. I have it in a 7, but it's like the 7 doesn't bother me just because the card is like so beautiful. I know it's not like a rare card, but in situations like that, it matters a lot less than if it's like a GX tag team or something. But
Yeah, that's interesting because I agree with the first part of what you said, but the second part, I would just say that if there's just so many clean copies out there, at that point, condition rarity means nothing to me. Like if it's a
that's
10, it's cool. If you like slabs and if you're trying to invest, like if you think that these are going to go up over time and you want to, hold the 10, that's fine. But for me, it's just if I know I can go on TCG Player and potentially I'm not saying it's easy to do, but to get a PSA 9, 10, one bad corner, I'm going to take that all day and just put it in the binder. But when we get to like some of these, like that Neo 9 Tyranitar I showed you last time that I got
yeah,
for $40, to buy near mint, it's still probably like $25, $30. And then to go find like, there's some trainer magazine cards out there where they're not that expensive. They're not incredibly rare. The pop's like $200-$300. But
yeah,
trying to find just a clean copy on eBay, like that can take some time depending on the card. And sometimes I'm not interested in sourcing, and then like I think I've said this in my videos before, like all of a sudden I gotta flip it. Like I got 3 copies of this card because I've been trying to find like a 9 to grade, So
yeah. So I mean, I definitely see where that kind of mentality comes from, where it's like if a card is actually rare to you, the grade is much more important because it's so much harder to replicate. Is kind of what you're saying. And yeah, I can definitely understand that. Like there was a period, um, I think I actually talked about it in a video, but I have a weird infatuation with like blister pack promos with the hollow.
you do,
The
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, you
and
love those posters.
there was one Salamence card that I really liked it was like a Dragon Vault from, like, Black and White, and it had the Cosmos Hollow from Blister Pack, and I went on TCG Player and I bought, like, 20 or 25 because I was like, "I want to grade a 10. I wanna be like" 'cause there at that point, there was no 9s. There was, like, 2 8s and only below that.
Are there any 10s right now?
I don't think there's last time I checked, there was a 9. There was 1 9,
Okay.
but there's no 10s. But I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna get so many of these, one of them has to be mint." And so I bought in bulk, and they were all just terrible. So that's actually what spurred me to make a video. I think I made a video about why quality was so bad on blister pack promos because it's like they're all like PSA 6 right out of the box. But just answering a few comments, Bleak Mission says PSA 8 to 9 really amazing. 8 or 9 is basically near mint to mint, so it's essentially pack fresh, which is true. Like especially with older sets, I'm sure you could probably attest to this as well. But it's like those older sets, you could pull sevens straight out of a pack. Where now it's pretty much like 9 or 10. But like I remember back in like black and white, you could pull pack fresh hollows and they were like sevens and it was just horrendous. So in situations like that I can definitely see why someone might want to just go for the lower
No,
grade.
I really agree with Blake there. Like when you get to the older eras, you're telling me a pack fresh card isn't good enough for you. Like, I mean, I think people
Yeah.
start getting really spoiled with Sword and Shield. And, for me, I've been opening, I mean, half my collection, I'm sure we'll get to this at some point, but part of the reason why I started getting into grading or buying graded cards was there became a point where the pricing of the card was baked in to the price of like it grading a high grade became baked into buying the raw single. So it got to a point where a PSA 8 is going for $50-$60 less than raw with no
Mhm.
photo on TCG
Yeah.
Player. And yeah, I just remember being like, well, these 8s, they look about the same as what I was getting from TCG Player. These 7s look about the same. And then I started getting them and cracking them, and I was like, there's one corner that's bad, not even. It's just like a fleck of like a little speck of whitening. And then like
Mhm.
that really opened my eyes. I was like, if I want a 10, it's gonna be gotta be one of my favorite cards. I gotta be looking at it all the time because that's like the value of having a perfect card or quote unquote perfect, because there's some bad 10s out there, I guess. There's value to that. But if I just want a card for a set, really, I mean, I just bought a Rocket Suicune PSA 7 from Team Rocket
Ooh,
Returns
nice.
for an auction. Yeah, I finally nailed an auction. It went for 190 in PSA 7, and I checked the scans. It was a 7 cert, and there's no whitening on the back. So I'm assuming
Mhm.
where there might be a bad scratch on the front. I couldn't tell.
Yeah.
But I went in, I was just curious. I went on TCG Player. Somebody, there was multiple purchases of a light plate for 200 plus, and that just didn't make it. Like, I feel like, I mean, what do you think light plate is? Six?
Light light played when it's raw, like, when people are being like, "Yeah, that's light played," it's usually like a 6.
Okay.
Like, technically, light played, I would think would be like, I don't know, I guess light played would be like a 6 or a 7, I don't know, but I feel like when people look at their cards, like, when they say near mint, it's actually like a 7, or
Yeah.
light played, it's probably like it honestly might be like a 5, and then, like, when the unt yeah, it takes a while for someone to actually admit their card is damaged.
I guess a better example than that was, I think one time I bought a PSA 8 melodic EX for 170, and then I went on TCG Player, and near mint there was two purchases for 250. And I was just
Yeah,
like, what are people doing? Like, I
mhm,
get sometimes auctions, like if it's not that liquid, they go under market value, but it's just crazy. Like, people just aren't, they're not willing to wait and be patient. Like,
mhm.
I don't know.
Yeah, and it's like people are so drawn to the label that they don't actually look at the card, like what you were saying with, some of your other pickups, like, I'm looking at, one of the cards I've showed a few times is, it's a first edition base holo, Zapdos in PSA 6. You can't see it because like, my screen refuses to focus for some reason whenever I put a card up, but it's a PSA 6, but it's only, like it's a PSA 6 because there's a little bit of a surface indent on the back, which, like, instant knocked it to a 6. But, like, if you're looking at it from arm's length away, it looks like it could be a 9. So stuff like that, I will buy a 6 if it looks that good, because it's like I th that's those small imperfections don't matter to me as much as the market, I guess. So I don't know, like, because like, a 9 for one of these is what, like, $600, and this was, like, 90 or 100, like, easy.
How much do you? I mean, if you want to bring something, if you want to change subject, that's fine. I don't want to go too much on a tangent, but that kind of brought up a question. How much do you trust grading companies? Because it kind of popped up into my head. This Suicune, at least from the scans, it looks really clean for a 7. When I
Mhm.
bought my Lugia, the picture was kind of blurry, and it was an older cert, so it didn't have any scans. The back was really beat up. I mean, there was whitening all on the bottom. There was a
And
nick
the
at the top, but the front was clean. No,
Was the
I didn't
Lugia a
see
9?
any scratches. What?
Was the Lugia a 9?
It was a 7.
Oh,
It
right,
was a 7.
okay.
Yeah, I'm just like trying to compare sevens. Like, one 7 seems to be really clean, and then another, like. But here's the thing: for me, a super clean front, I was like, okay, so that's why this is a 7. Like, the front's really nice. If the front had a couple scratches, this might be a 5. But there just seems to be people out there who's like, oh, I saw a 9 with a couple nicks. This is a terrible 9. Like, PSA so inconsistent. I'm like, do you know how many cards they grade, man? Like, I
Yeah. Like,
get a little too.
I definitely I definitely think there's a lot of inconsistency with grading, but I think on average, you can pretty much get a grade right, like, probably like, within maybe 80% of the time. Like, I've done a few grade returns on my channel, and every time I've been within a grade of 1, except if it's, like the only thing that is, like, a crapshoot is if you grade any sports cards with a patch in them, the really thick cards, they'll just be, like, 4. Like, it's just, like it's totally random what they'll grade those, but, for like grading a Pokemon card, I think like you can pretty consistently be like, that's if you think it's a 9, it'll either be an 8, a 9, or a 10. Like probably if like let's say it's actually a 9, if that's possible, like this card is a 9, it probably comes back a 9, I'd say 80% of the time. 10% it's a 10, 10% it's an 8. So I feel like there's a little discrepancy there, but at least in my experience, it's on average, it's fairly
I
consistent.
will
I've never had
say,
any crazy grades.
I will say though, I watched your PSA returns recently, or I don't know how old that was. Maybe it was because you were grading Japanese cards. Well, you had some couple English in there. You were downplaying your grades. You must be a pretty harsh grader. I mean, if you were
Oh,
at PSA, you're probably, nobody would want you at PSA. You'd be
there
giving everybody nines, even on
there
your
is
best day.
yeah, that was weird. So I've gotten probably like in total I've probably done like 10 PSA orders, and the last one that I posted, I was basing my grade predictions on previous returns, and that return I got so good. Like my grades, it was like 10, 10, 10, 9, 10, 10, 10, and it was like diamond and pearl era cards, and it was so
Japanese
weird.
or
Like
English?
most of the 10s were Japanese, but I
Okay.
was getting like EX era 9 holos consistently, which, like, isn't
Ooh,
common
okay.
for at this point, and they were, like, cards I bought on eBay. Like, maybe I just got lucky, but I a lot of them, I was like, "Oh, in my experience, this usually comes back in 8." And maybe I was
Did,
just wrong, maybe I was just being overly critical, but I
did
think
that
that was a crazy return.
did that change your process? Like after that happened, were you just like, oh, I just got lucky, or were you like, you know what, maybe I'm gonna send a couple more out, or were you just like, oh, this grader had the best day ever? Like, what do
I
you?
actually haven't submitted since then, which is kinda dumb, 'cause I was like, "Oh, that was, like, an amazing return." You'd think that would mean I would submit more, but I haven't done one yet, but I think next time I'll be much more willing to submit a card, because there's so many times I'll have, like, 20 cards I plan on submitting, and then I'll end up knocking 10 of them back because 'cause I'm like, "Ah, this isn't good enough for the price I need." But, I just wanna quick answer a few, comments in the chat. So,
Yeah,
Somehow, once again, if I'm pronouncing your name wrong, I apologize. I don't know how to pronounce the A with the tilde, but, he says, grading
Simao. I think it's Simao.
CMAO? Okay. If that's wrong, just let us know in the comments, but, grading/PSA are the backbone of the hobby, especially in the US. In Europe, there's not an efficient/accessible way to grade your cards, especially with PSA. How do you think that affects the market? I mean, I live in the US, so I can't really speak well on it, but what I would assume would happen, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, is if there's no good way to grade reliably in the UK, there's probably, like, a lot more margin because there's probably less people doing it if it's not as easy to do. Like, that was a problem, like, when COVID first hit, it was so hard to grade that I feel like the prices just went crazy because there was a discrepancy between desire of graded cards and the actual, like, submitters, but, I mean, that could be way off. What do you think about
I
that?
mean, I probably know less than you. I will say that they do have some. I'm curious to see how many, maybe during the boom when PSA was flooded or um, people were just sending to anything. I know that I think there's a grading company. I bought a couple slabs and cracked them called Grad. I don't know where it is. It's based in Europe, but I mean they seem pretty consistent. But I think I just wonder where this question is going in terms like is he or she saying that that how do I word this? That maybe there's secretly just a bunch of cards just waiting to be graded and it's going to destroy the pop of certain older mid-era cards. That'd be interesting. I've thought about that sometimes with Japanese. That's why I
Yeah,
don't really speculate too much at all, is because PSA
mhm.
just opened an office in Japan and we just really don't know how many people are just just sitting on binders because they don't want to deal with international shipping. I mean, who
Yeah.
does really?
I mean, yeah, I
But
turned that off on my eBay because I had one bad experience, and I was
where'd
like,
you
"Nope."
ship to?
I think I shipped to China. It was like this was recent. This was like a month ago. I shipped to China and it got like lost by the USPS. It like said delivered at some random place and then it stayed there for like 3 weeks and the guy requested a refund, so I had to give it to him. But I was like, this is just I don't want to deal with this. But yeah, that is interesting because like I don't know if this is a coincidence or not, and this actually comes into Australian Blastoise's comment
What's
about
up, Oscar?
Japanese
I've seen him in a
promos.
PK chat before. He's a pretty cool dude.
Okay. Yeah, so unfortunately, I'm not here to talk much about waifus, but, we can talk
We
about
touched
Japanese
on him
promos.
briefly in our last live, but
But, it is interesting that Japanese boomed at around the same time that PSA opened a brick and mortar in Japan. I don't know if those two were related, but it seemed like as soon as that place opened, all of a sudden everyone went crazy for Japanese. And it might honestly be because a lot of Japanese collectors were like, "Oh, now I can cheaply grade my cards here, and I'll dump a bunch, put it on the market." That might have had something to do with it. I have no idea, but it was interesting because it happened. I think it opened around V Star Universe at time is when I believe so. I could be way off there, but I
it
thought it
was
was
in the last
around.
year. I do think so. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was right when V Star Universe comes out. All of a sudden, it's like the most hyped Japanese set ever, and thousands and thousands were being graded where previous sets that were 10 years old didn't even have that many in total being graded, and then like in the first week they surpassed that. It was kind of interesting. I don't know if there's a something to draw between those two things, but
I think that's an astute observation. I mean, I don't really know. I just, I mean, my only take when people bring up waifus is I think they're here to stay. I think a lot of the channels that I see, they're just I think they are boomers. I think they're just not. They don't know maybe how many young people are into anime, and it's not
Mm,
just a bunch of old weirdos. It's sometimes it's just people that in Japan, anime is a lot bigger, but it's pretty big in the U.S. as well. Like a lot of people who say that Pokemon, they used to hide it when they were younger, and now it seems cooler. I think anime is like that, but times 10. I
yeah.
remember 10 years ago talking about Naruto, it was like you're a nerd. And now if you talk about Naruto, you're just like, oh, do you really even like anime? Like that's just like the first, you're just a fake fan, or I don't know. But I think waifus will be around. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, I mean, I've like I haven't commented too much on it on my channel yet, just because like I don't personally know that market well. Like I understand like, oh, people really like that art style of people on cards, like whether it's like, female trainers or whatever. Like I get like that's what's really popular. But I mean, if people like it, people like it, but it feels like it came out of nowhere. Like those cards have been printed for years, like even in XY and maybe in black and white too, with like N and stuff like that. I mean, N was a guy, but like Skyla, there was a full art Skyla, I think in a black and white
I'm sure
set.
that's I'm thinking about grading that sky. I think it's a sky
Really?
you're talking about. I think
Yeah,
so.
because it's weird though, because those cards came out in like what, 2013, 2014, and it took almost 10 years for people to be like, oh wait, we like these things. Like anime has been popular I mean, maybe it's gotten a resurgence recently, and I haven't been aware of it, but I feel like anime as a whole has been popular for years now as like a more established thing. I'm surprised all of a sudden it's blowing up in the card space. It just kind of threw me. I didn't see it coming.
Yeah, I didn't really either. I think maybe you could say it's market. Some of it's maybe market manipulation. I don't know. Some people say it's the big buyers in China. They like Japanese more than English. Maybe it could be like you said with the PSA now. There, maybe it's just some people. If it's not in a slab, they don't see how it could be several $1,000s. As soon as you throw
Yeah.
something in a slab, and some of those, I was looking through some of them. I mean, some of those cards, the expensive lilies and whatnot, they're pretty tough to get. Like I think that really expensive lily, I went to go look it up. Like you had to be at a certain area and at a certain game store and like win some kind of, it was like some kind of lottery, and then you had to open a pack, and the pack had like a 1 in 4 chance to get it. So I don't know. I think it's also, I mean, we're looking at how old is Sun and Moon right now? Is that
Like
2019?
2015, 2016? Is that one?
I think
Because
that's
X and
25.
Generations, or sorry, Evolutions was the last XY set, and that was 2016.
2016. So yeah, we're not at 10 years yet. I don't know. Yeah, it's maybe you can make the argument that the newer ones now, because there are some like in Crown Zenith at least, there was some like alt arty looking. Why I don't know actually, because the Sun and Moon ones are the ones that are really expensive. I don't know. We can move on. I don't have my. I
Yeah.
tried analyzing that. I
I
tried.
mean, yeah, it's interesting to talk about, but I just feel like I don't want to come across as like insulting people for liking them. But when people ask me, I'm like, I don't value it at that price. But if other people do, then good. Like it's their money.
I think
But
well, the one last thing, or the one thing that doesn't make sense with me is that about it is that it seems like some of the characters that I look up that are really expensive, they're not even like that integral to the anime. So it doesn't really make sense sometimes
you
why
mean
some
like
are
the
more.
character isn't important? You're saying?
Yeah, like I honestly don't have the names on time, but when I started looking through some of them are just more side character. I don't know. It wasn't like I would always think that Cynthia would be the most expensive, or
Mhm.
maybe a Misty, but no, people are into the Lily. Well, Lily is pretty big in Ultra Sun and Moon.
Yeah, she's like the main
Yeah,
rival,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
yeah. So she make yeah, she's like your partner or whatever. Yeah, but
Mm.
anyways,
I will say, there was one Cynthia card. Like, I'm not a huge fan of collecting the trainers, but there was one card. It was like Cynthia with Garchomp behind her.
I think that's Hidden
Um,
Fates.
was it Hidden Fates?
If
Maybe,
it's not
yeah.
Hidden Fates, there's one like there. If it's not Hidden Fates, it's Crown Z, Cosmic Eclipse.
I thought it was more recent than that.
Oh,
And I
let's see.
think it was definitely Sword and Shield, but
It was a
the one
gallery.
the one of yeah, it was like yeah. So the one of her with Garchomp behind her, I was actually really interested in that for a while because I was like, oh, like that just feels so Gen 4. like, even though I'm not super interested in getting the supporters, like Cynthia with Garchomp just felt I was like, because it made me think of like Platinum, and which was like my one of my childhood games. Like my two childhood games were my three were Emerald, Soul Silver, and Platinum. So it made me think of like my childhood because it felt so Gen 4. And I was interested in it for a while, but I think now it's pretty expensive. So I won't be
Oh
buying
no,
it.
no, it's the Astral Radiance Trainer Gallery. It's going
Okay.
down in price. It's about $20.
Oh, really?
Now there
Okay.
might be
Awesome.
another one. Maybe that I want to say there is too, but I'm not sure. But that's crazy
Mm.
that those are the games that are your favorite because
Yeah, how about you? Like,
those are my
what,
three, and then Leaf Green.
I
But,
mean, I would imagine Leaf
yeah,
Green's up there. Did you like which game do you think you put on the most hours to?
Black.
Black, really?
Pokemon Black.
Interesting.
That's when I was battling people online, doing wonder trades, EV training, trying to catch shinies. I was like 13. I was in like a Pokemon group. I was way more into the video games though, kind of looking back. But yeah, I never always wanted to go back and play Black and White too.
Mm,
One of those. Apparently, those are one of the best games in the era. But that's one file actually. The most would be Leaf Green. I played through Leaf Green a lot, so actually it might
okay.
be the game. So
I would say
Platinum. I lost Platinum and I just bought it like a year ago. I'm gonna get on that.
I don't think it's Platinum. I think it's definitely Soul Silver for me because Soul Silver had the second gen had one thing.
Pokeathlon.
I- What?
You played the Pokeathlon. I love that. And Heart Gold Soul
Yes.
Silver, the
Poke
Olympics.
like, stuff like that, I'd put so much time into, like that, like Full Torb Flip. Remember, did you ever play that little it's like a little
Oh
mini
yeah.
game in one of the cities, like,
I
stuff like
forgot what
that, I would
item.
just
There's something I was trying to buy. I was just playing that not even a year ago. I was grinding that.
mhm. Yeah, so I
The
think it's
gambling
definitely Soul
place,
Silver.
right? At the little gambling casino, Baltimore.
Yeah, it was like it was to it they replaced, like, because in, like, the OG game, they had, like, a slot machine, and they were like, "We
Mhm.
can't market that to children." So, but, stuff like that, like, I feel like those kind of things aren't as prevalent in modern games, like, these random side things that they would put a lot of time into, like the Pokeathlon, that was, like, a very well-made little mini game that they didn't even have to do. Nobody was asking
No.
for it, do it.
Yeah, you can play it with friends. Yeah, that was sick.
And, Josie says, "Best game soundtrack." That's a tough one. I'll let you answer first.
Oh, I don't know. I listened to a couple tunes. There's one or two from Black that I like. But
Mm,
legendary themes, I really like the Lake Trio theme. You know the Lake
okay.
Trio?
Um, yeah,
It's
I mean,
more than I
I can't
shouldn't.
think of the sound off I can't think of the song off the top of my
Oh yeah,
head.
that one, and then Giratina's theme is my favorite in all of this
From the
game.
Distortion World? Yeah.
Yeah, so
I would say, actually at work, I'm an engineer for a construction company, and so if I'm ever doing, like, busy work, I have, like, a studying playlist. And on my studying playlist is it's like this orchestra that covered all the Red and Blue songs, like Lavender Town, the Victory Road, all that kind of stuff. And they it was like an orchestra that played it, and that's some of those songs are actually on my studying
A-
playlist. But I'd say best
anything? Did
soundtrack.
any song like stand out to you? Like
There's
in the game, you were like, eh, and then in the orchestra played it, and you're like, oh damn.
there's one, yeah, there's actually one that's like my favorite one. In the meantime, while I'm trying to find it, I think I would say while I'm playing the game, my favorite one was definitely Gen 3, the Hoenn with the trumpets and stuff.
Really, that might be my least favorite.
Really?
But I feel
Um,
like here's the thing though. I think that's got to be more nostalgic for you maybe because I didn't play Emerald for like I wasn't playing that as a kid. I think I started playing that in middle school, late middle school, high school. But like
mhm,
Leaf Green, I was playing that when I was 8,
yeah.
or even Black. Or Black, I was playing that when I was like 12. I don't know, but
So the songs were the ones I have on my studying playlist are Goldenrod City,
okay.
Little Root Town, obviously, and then Route 110 from Gen 3.
I would.
Those are the three.
You should listen to Lacunosa Town one of these days. Maybe I'll message it to you. It's like a
What
coffee
game is
shop
that?
vibe. It's black. It's Gen
Oh,
5.
okay.
Yeah. That and Drift Vale City. They're kind of funky. Drift Vale is kind of funky, but yeah.
I feel like yeah, I remember Drift Veil, but I feel like we should get back to cards. I don't
Yeah.
feel
Oh
because
yeah.
let's
No, I'm waiting
let's
for
talk
your
about music.
transition. I
So there's one thing I did want to talk to you about because I noticed it recently. This like price discrepancy kind of went away recently, but for a while it existed. Um, for a while I was buying Steam decks that included a booster pack. So this is like it was only a thing from Heart Gold, Soul Silver through Call of Legends. But when theme decks they were like weren't selling well, people were like, "Oh, how are we gonna make these sell better? We got to put a booster pack in it." So like it'll say like includes booster right here. It'll say you can't read it because I have like can't
right,
look
I
into
see it.
Stone
Right.
Age.
I saw that video. How much did you get that for? Does that have a Nido
These
King
ones I
on
got a
it?
while ago. These ones I got like $50 a piece.
Is there a Nido
And
King
then I
on
had
that?
I had 2 Call of Legends that I got for, like, 20 a piece because I got them like, years ago. But those ones for a while, I was even though I wasn't buying more of them, I was just tracking the price. You could buy the theme deck with an unweighed pack in it for less money than a raw pack for, like, years. Like, when Harkol's when Triumphant packs were $80, you could buy the theme deck for 60. When they were 100, you could buy the theme deck for 80. It made like no sense. And I think that finally kind of closed, but I was watching that for a while and I thought I'd throw that out there. I don't know if you've seen much about that. I feel
No,
like it's a very like not talked about thing,
I was
but
trying to say, is there a Nido King on that? Is there a Nido King
there,
art on the theme deck?
there is. It just
Yeah,
started pouring rain here. I hope
Nido
you
King
can't
is one of my
hear.
yeah, he's one of my
Yeah.
favorites. I might be
Oh my
interested in
God. My
doing some
ring light.
play. I actually kind of got into theme decks. I just don't have enough room on my house. I was looking at a Blastoise Crystal Guardians theme deck yesterday, but I went for $100, which honestly probably
Crystal
wasn't.
Crystal Guardians theme decks are only $100.
I know. Yeah, and had a
That's
Blastoise on
crazy.
it. It went in auction for 100 on Probstein but
I would
yeah,
have thought those would be way more expensive.
I
That's
probably should have
crazy.
pulled the trigger, but I don't
Well,
know. Yeah, it was like
now you
middle.
said it, all 4 people in this chat are buying them right now.
Yeah.
So
That's it.
CP5.
There's our pump. There's our pump. But yeah, you're the I kind of want to say maybe when you're talking about the price discrepancy, I just think maybe it has something to do with the era. I think Heart Gold Soul Silver is a little it almost seems kind of forgotten. I don't know
Yeah.
what you think on that. Like do you expect like legend cards? Wouldn't you expect those to be more?
Those like the half arts that you put together.
Mhm.
See, I think if that art was on one card, they'd be the most valuable cards of, like, all of mid-era.
You think the half
But I
art's
think
kind of gimmicky?
yeah, because it's like, you need both. They don't display well. You got like, they're kinda weird to put together because like, sometimes you gotta turn them sideways for the art to be upright, like, I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
that holds them
Tough
back a
to
lot,
work in
but
a slab. Yeah. If
yeah.
you put them
I
in the
actually saw one of those weird grading companies that popped up in the boom. There was like 1,000 of them, but one of them that popped up would grade legend cards together, which I thought was really cool. It was like one slab with 2 windows in it, and they'd grade them both together. I thought that was a phenomenal idea,
That's a
but
great idea.
I think was it
That
HGA? I don't know, it was something one of those three-letter
Oh,
ones
HG
that
oh, okay. Did it have a black, label?
I don't know. I don't
Remember?
know. I'll have to look it up, but
Okay.
I saw it once or twice, and I thought that was a great idea. But yeah, I do think Heart Gold Soul Silver is kind of like it's like the awkward middle child because everyone's oh I love Diamond and Pearl, I love EX era, and then everyone's like oh I love the full arts from Black and
Black
White,
and
but
white, yep.
no one's like man those prime cards like I haven't heard like that's a no one yeah no one
When
cares
I
about those.
first got into the hot when I no, no, not when I first got into back into or no, when I first started buying singles online, primes were the first thing I was actually going to collect because of how affordable they were. And I remember I was about to buy some, and then Twice Baked Jake brought them up in a video. And the Gengar, the Umbreon, the Espeon, all of a sudden they were like $30. Now the Umbreon's like 90. This was like a year and a half ago, but yeah, ever since then I kind of took a step. I was like, I'm not willing to buy them at these prices because the value to me for those cards was having them all in one set.
Hmm.
That's just having an individual card. I'm not there yet with some of those. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I agree. Like on its own, they don't display well, but as a set, they're pretty
Yeah,
nice.
because they all got the
But
same theme, all close up faces.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But about Twice Baked Jake, bringing that up, I feel like once you get to a certain size of YouTube channel, you just can't talk about anything without people being like, "Oh, like you pumped that." I'm not saying you're saying that about him, but I feel like PokeRev can't just be like, "Oh, I love Trainer Deck B." Like he can't say that because if he says that, millions of people will all of a sudden fixate on it and would shoot up in price, and everyone would get mad at him and be like, "Oh, this is your fault." But I feel like Toy Speak Jake, I think he's a really great person. Like he just seems like a fun and positive person. But I feel like when he talks about cards, he has such a big impact on the market that people like don't like him for that, which is like a weird thing because it's not really his fault. He's not. I don't really watch him, but I don't think he's being like buy this because it's gonna go up. He just says, "Hey, this card's cool," and all of a sudden it triples in value. It's
I
completely
I
up
think
to
it's
him.
I think it's a gray area because I like I'm a big fan of Twice Speak Jake, don't get me wrong here, but I
Mhm,
think there comes a point where it's like, there's other ways you can help collectors maybe find cards than just doing top 5 undervalued cards or underrated cards to get right now. And you already have 100,000 subscribers, Pokemon's already sending you stuff. So that's sometimes where I get a little annoyed, where it's kind of, but I think the frustration should be more with the viewer. You know, people who, I mean, you see it more in the investor space and the speculation space. People don't want to go and research and find their own plays or find
mhm,
cards that they haven't seen before. They just want to go on YouTube, short form content, just throw it in their face, tell them this is good, this is nice, whatever, check this out, and then move on. So,
mhm, yeah.
they,
I think it was, you watch Z and G Emporium?
one or two videos.
Because he has like 20,000 subscribers. Like he's a decent sized channel. But at one point he was like talking about that and he was like, if you mention like anything about price or like being undervalued in your title, it'll instantly put you leaps and bounds above these other videos. And he did it. He made like a super clickbaity video as a joke, like top 5 cards that are undervalued, these will make you rich, stuff like that, and that was, like, one of his most watched videos, and it's just, like, it's crazy how people just kind of funnel into those
Yeah,
videos.
top 5 is, those videos smash. Yeah, I've
Mhm.
heard about that. Top 5, top 10 videos they kill.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I made a top 10 Charizards video, but I was very careful about like,
that's the
over
only
and
video I
over, I'd
haven't
be like,
seen. I skipped over that video. I was like,
yeah,
I'm
'cause
good on
yeah,
that.
no, it seems very, like, low effort, but, like, I tried to make it so clear, I'm like, "This is about the art, like, this isn't about pumping price." I'm like, "I think these are the 10 best arts," and, it was a really popular video, and I feel like it was popular because people thought I would be mentioning undervalued cards when that wasn't really, like, the point of it at all, but, yeah, those kind of videos are very, like, murky water,
When I start
so I'm
seeing
trying
them,
not to
it's
make
like,
too
yeah,
many more of those.
I get it. Like, some people they want to have a big, big following and clicks and all that. I mean, I totally understand that. But, just if I'm just a viewer sometimes and I see that, I'm just like, okay, I see what you're doing. I might watch a bit of it, but it's not going to keep me coming back. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't get recommended that stuff as much, really.
mhm.
Not anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like my YouTube algorithm is so fine-tuned, I don't even see the clickbaity stuff. Like, people are like, "Oh my god, did you see this, like, drama with, like, Frosted Caribou and so and so?" And I'm like, "Dude, I'm in this space every day, and I have no idea what you're talking about." Like, so I'm definitely glad about that. But, yeah, so I did is there are there any, like, cards you've picked up recently that you wanna just show off or talk
There,
about? Or
man, not really, honestly. Most are in the. I can show you some pickups if you have any other topics you wanna bring up, because they're not
yeah.
really bangers or anything. But
Yeah, I mean, honestly, a lot of the cards I've been picking up have been not Pokemon, or they've been like $1 cards that are just like PC cards because I like the art. That's been kind of what I'm picking up recently. But one thing I did want to mention that I don't know if you have any thoughts on is I've been watching Scarlet and Violet a lot recently, and just about us like picking up cheap cards. It's so interesting to watch. I don't have any Scarlet and Violet cards, but it's so interesting to watch because there's arts that are coming out that are like the same caliber as Sword and Shield alt arts. I don't know what they're calling them now. I think it's something different. It's like art rare or something. It's like the Gardevoir from base, Scarlet and Violet base, stuff like that. They're like the same caliber as alt arts, but because they're easier to pull, like nobody cares. Like I feel like there's been so little chatter about those cards just because the pull rates aren't at the same level as alt arts, which I find a little weird. I don't know. Like if I'm collecting a set, I feel like that matters to people more than it does to me, honestly.
I just think Scarlet and Violet. I think it smacks. I'm a big fan. I'm liking it. I'm liking some of these new legendaries. I'm just waiting for some of the prices to keep going down more. Like I've been eyeing that Chien Pao for a while. Do you know Chien Pao? Have you been
I
keeping up
know
with?
I know the character. I don't know the card you're talking
He's
about.
it's like the snow leopard. It's Paldea
Oh, is there a new
Evolved.
alt art? Is there a
It's
new alt
yeah,
art?
it's illustration rare. Yeah,
Hmm.
a month ago it was $40. Now it's like cut in half, and
Yeah.
I'm just waiting. Like some of the illustration rares are like $11 of legendaries, and it's just like yeah, they're new legendaries, and Sword and Shield is great, and people are finding out this that Sun and Moon is running out, and people are freaking out about that, and Japanese is going crazy, and 151's coming, so it's understandable. It really is. I mean, if a Charizard set's getting hurt with Obsidian Flames, I totally understand that right now people aren't really feeling Scarlet and Violet, but it's just too early to tell.
Let me know if this is a hot take or not when you're saying like how much you like Scarlet and Violet. I love Scarlet and Violet, but I really do not like those. I don't know that it's like terastallized or something. Those like gem. It's like when they have like the crown of like a shen. Like
Yeah.
those ones. I don't know. They don't do it for me. I don't know. Like,
We,
are you a big fan of those?
I think we're gonna need to give it I'm gonna give it a little bit more time. And
Sleep
the
on it.
price is gonna be huge because I remember when we got off our last live together and you said you were asking me if there was anything that I was collecting besides if there's anything else I was collecting besides um oh man. You know what?
Besides the
They're
Xterra?
ugly anyways. If there's anything else collecting besides the X era, I
Mhm.
have almost a complete collection of break cards, and
Really?
those are horrid. But you know
You're
what?
the first
$2
person I've ever met that likes those.
for two. What did you say?
I said you're the first person I've ever met that's like into those. I've never.
Oh, I
That's
kind of want to
crazy.
pull them out now. I'd
You
rather show
should.
those off.
Yeah. So while he's getting that, if you're newer to the hobby, I definitely recommend looking into break cards because it was like the weirdest, the most jarring change of art style they've ever made. Like all of a sudden, in the middle of XY, they started making these horizontal cards that are like they're all gold. They're like metal. Like they're like metal Pokemon, and there was like a weird game mechanic with them, and it was so out of left field. Like people either loved them or they were like, "Get that away from me." So I've never heard someone really going after that set. That's really interesting.
There's just some of them like I don't. I do not have the Arcanine yet, but yeah, I'm getting there. Like, just sometimes if they're just Pokemon I like, I'm gonna get it. I mean, the
That's an
Nidoking, the Zoroark, the Lugia. I got a couple more down here, but yeah, just weird. Some of the legend. I love Omastar. I have a plush of it back in the back. I'm a champ. I got the Hydreigon in the Hydreigon collection binder. So the Ninetales. But yeah, I think the Arcanine
Samago's
one.
Samago's
These are
breaks aren't
70
Hitman.
cents in near mint. It's insane. And
Are
they
they
just,
still that cheap?
huh?
Are they still that cheap?
Yeah, I haven't checked recently, but I know like the Arcanine's like $15. I think that's the most expensive one. I got the Lugia in mint condition for $5. And
Damn.
they just, I mean, I hate gold and silver together as a fashion guy. They're not really my thing, but just they just look so much different than any Pokemon cards I've seen in terms of just like a mechanic. And yeah,
Mhm.
I think for the price. So basically, going back to Terrestrialize, if they end up becoming like $3 cards, I might just collect them because they're so wacky looking.
Yeah.
But I do like the Terrestrialized Charizard, not the secret rare, but the Terrestrialized one, not the gold one. I do like that.
Yeah, the regular one I don't dislike. I'm indifferent to that one, but the gold one that you mentioned
Horrid,
is it's so much going on.
terrible.
It like hurts my eyes to look at.
I mean, it's
It's
orange and yellow, and the crystals. Yeah, there's not enough of a like. I saw an edit of the normal one, the Terrestrialized with a shiny Charizard. Beautiful. just the black and the white and the I think it's a nice card, but
I will
uh,
say though, as someone who's into fashion like you are, like not me, but you're saying you're into fashion. What do you think about the Sun and Moon hyper rares? Do you think those are also kind of on that same level of being too busy, too over designed, stuff like that? You gotta whip out your binder of hyper rares.
I mean, I might whip out I might show you a couple. Let's see.
Because I know,
I do have a couple. I think they've grown on me, and I do like here. I'll just because I don't need to show them all. That. I like the kind of I don't know if it'll pick it up, but kind of like the beams, the rays kind of coming from the bottom. I like that a lot more than this powdery. It's like really powdery, glittery. There's still the rain. There's still the. It's hard to pick it up. Like there is still the beam thing, but like it's like kind of glittery. I don't know, but the
yeah.
Sun and Moon hyper rares are rarer than the Sword
Were
and
were
Shield.
certain sets, 'cause I didn't even know there was a difference. I thought they were all the same. Were some sets, did they have a different holo on the rainbow rare? Like, oh, like Sun and Moon base had this one. Whatever other Sun and Moon set had a different holo pattern. Because I've never even noticed that before. You're the first person to bring that up to me.
To my knowledge, right now I'm seeing. I actually do think they are different. Yeah, because this
Somehow,
one here, like this Entei, you're not going to be able to see it really, but the background for this one's more like squiggly, and it's not just like going up in the background. So yeah, I think they're a lot. I do think they're a lot, but if they're not expensive, like some of these, I got an Aerodactyl for like $10. The Entei was 16. I think the Blaziken was 20 or something like that. I'll pay that for certain rainbow rares. I'm also when I bought some of these, I was worried that they were gonna shoot up in price, which
yeah,
some did, but
you
yeah.
were in the Pokenomics camp of thinking.
Yes. Yeah, but
Yeah,
I only bought two, and the
but I
rest
did.
of them I pulled. Yeah.
I do think they have gone up a bit. Like, I'm personally not a fan of them, but they have, I think, appreciated once people started to freak out about Sun and Moon, which is also a weird thing. Sun and Moon, people like lost their minds as soon as like Sun and Moon ended. Like, everyone's like, "Oh my God, Sun and Moon was so rare." I feel like is that just me? But it's not. I don't know. I find
Ooh,
it so bizarre.
yeah, we can get into that. Now we're
Yeah,
bringing up. Let me show you one of these purchases here. I want to see how you feel about this. So, I think when you start get there becomes a certain point. So this is one of the big cards from my hobby,
okay,
not from
nice.
my childhood, but
The
I got this in a
grandfather.
10 here.
Yeah, wow, that's a
And
big card.
what?
That's a huge card.
Yeah,
Like that's a
this
valuable
is
card.
that's my card right now.
Did you just pick that up, or is that a while ago?
This was a while. This was like 2 3 months ago, so not too long. But basically, my decision was I already had enough sealed. I had opened enough hidden fates personally um, to satisfy my pack opening needs. Like right now, in a couple of years, I might rip open a tin if it's not too expensive. But I really did open up enough hidden fates. But I think when you start getting to modern, or there's comes a certain point where pops, you got to start comparing it to the eras around it, not WotC or an era like in the mid era where the Pokemon hobby was like not as big as today.
Mhm.
So when I one thing that made me think that this isn't too crazy was when I looked at this pop. There's like 5,500, and Hidden Fates was known to be printed to the ground. People also say that, which is it's true, that Champion's Path got printed to the ground. I compared the secret rare from the secret rare Shiny Charizard from
Yeah.
Champion's Path, which is supposed to be a harder pull because I think this is just an ultra rare. That one has over 12,000 in the pop. That made me realize that I didn't buy this card because it's the first shiny Charizard full art. That might be one of the reasons why it goes up in time. I just really thought when I looked at the price history, it had bottomed out at the price I got it for a while, and I just thought that it was only a matter of time for it to go up, and I just wasn't really willing to pay for that price. But yeah, like 5,000 compared to mid era, insane. Just
Yeah.
insane. That's not a rare card. But when you start looking at Sword and Shield cards, it's night and day. So I do think Sun and Moon some of the FOMO was a little it was a little bit warranted on great maybe graded
Yeah.
10.
Yeah, I think one, like, problem that I have is I, like I've done a really bad job of, like, getting with the times. So, like, I have this, like, idea in my mind of, like, what a high pop is, which is, like, totally misconstrued from anything. Like, if I see something with 4 digits in the PSA registry, I'm like, "Oh, that's so high pop." Like, I wanna stay away from that, like, and if I'm buying for a money-making kind of like, if it's a collection, who cares? But, like, if I'm buying it with a financial idea in mind, I'm like, "Oh, 4 digits? That's so much." Like, I can't get into that. But, like, it's such an old way of thinking, like you were saying, because it's like, there's what, 8,000 Moonbryons, and they sell like hotcakes. Like, if a card is popular enough, there comes a point where it's almost like the population, like, is irrelevant. I mean, like, with the Burning Shadows, like, that's much scarcer than, like, any Sun and Moon or sorry, any, yeah, any, what is the term? Sword and Shield pull, but in my mind, I think, "Oh my, like, that's like 5,000 is so high." But then when you just compared it to a chase card of just 2 years later, it's like the more modern, like, blows it out
Yeah,
of the
the maybe I don't want to like correct it too much, but I think the Burning Shadows, that's a Rainbow Charizard. That pop I think is 2K. It might be even less. Like
really?
that one, the print quality is really known. It's known as being really bad, and it wasn't as printed as Hidden Fates was. But yeah, no, I agree. If this was just kind of like a regular card for me, like just a regular Charizard, I would have seen the thousands and I would have split. But I just wanted
Mhm.
the reason why I started looking into the pops. I was like, okay, I want this for my collection. I do think I wouldn't be surprised if in 2 3 years this was went up a little bit. I just want to make sure that this pop isn't too crazy and I don't, I'm just not trying like I'm not FOMOing right now.
Yeah.
So
What percent of people buying graded cards do you think don't even look at the pop? They don't care. They're just like, "Oh, I like that card. It's in a slab. I'm gonna buy it." Because I feel like it's higher than I internally think it is. Like, I don't know. Do you have
90%.
any You think 90% of
I
people
think it's
don't look
really
at the
high,
pop?
and it might be even higher. I think people really forget how much of a niche we are. Like I'm not saying we're special or anything, but just people who are willing to watch an hour long live. People who are down, I'm sure you're trying to get big, but really part of the reason why I made my YouTube channel was just to find someone to talk to about cards. And I don't want to rip packs. And I when I look through content on YouTube, I just noticed that there's not a lot of people just talking about pure, just kind of collecting or so. Yeah, I don't think that your average consumer when they see a card that's $50 at a convention, the first thing in their minds like, well, how many of these are out there? I think
Yeah.
that's only when you start if you start dropping, you start getting into niche cards, older cards. That's when I'm sure at some point you'll stumble upon a thread, a video that's like the pops don't really reflect the price or yada yada, and you're like, well, what's
You're like,
that?
"What does that mean?" Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm. Yeah, I definitely agree with you there, and I used to not think that. I used to have this idea like, "Oh, if someone's buying a graded card, they're decently involved in the hobby," which I think maybe 5 years ago used to be the case, but now everyone's buying slabs
hmm
regardless. And what made me really change my thinking was, so for, my dad and I are really into football, and we have a thing that whenever one of our teams makes it to the Super Bowl or wins something, does something really important, the other guy, like, will buy them a card of one of their players. Like, so when my dad is an Eagles fan, so when the Eagles went to the Super Bowl last year, I bought him a Jalen Hurts rookie card. And I was looking at it and I was like, a raw card of this is $3, but a graded card in a 10 is 40. And I bought the graded card for $40, even though I could have bought a raw one and graded it myself. But I'm like, I'm a consumer, I'm not an investor. And I'm like, is it worth saving $10 to just have the bird in the hand? And for me, I was like, no, this is a gift for my dad. I'm just gonna buy the graded card. No, I'm not doing the best financial decision. And once I did that, I realized like, oh, there are so many people in Pokemon doing the same thing. There's so many dads buying a random PSA 10 Eevee for his daughter because she thinks Eevee's cute. Like he doesn't give a shit what the pop is. Like I feel like once I did that, I always realized, oh, I'm one of those people. and I can see why they do that for like unless you're buying like a $500 card, then I feel like you should know what you're doing. But
I could go on that point for probably forever. I mean, if there's one thing I've noticed trying to, talk in Discords and YouTube lives and just videos, I've just noticed that there just seems to be this, I've seen this running joke where, collectors are kind of gatekeeping, what's a true collector, yada yada. And I do know those. I mean, I'm somewhat kind of like that. I try to stop, I don't think I'm too bad compared to other people, but there's a lot of flippers and speculators and even just old time collectors who they're like, well, why are you collecting that? Why are you buying that? It doesn't make sense financially. There's better cards out there, yada, yada, yada. And it's just like, just let the man or woman, just let them buy. Just let
yeah,
them
they're
do
buying
it.
shiny cardboard. Let's
Okay,
relax.
you're right. Grading isn't that difficult. Pre-grading, sourcing, it's not the most difficult thing in the world, but it doesn't mean that everyone wants to do it. And yeah, I usually don't have a problem when I buy a 10. I'm just like, yeah, I know that there's a 9 out there that's cheaper, but I want the perfect version of this card, and no one's gonna really stop me here. And
Yeah. I've definitely been guilty of what you're talking about, where, like, it's like subconscious gatekeeping. I wouldn't, like, vocally be like, "You're dumb for buying that."
yeah,
I would
going off on them, yeah, same, yeah.
yeah, sometimes on my channel, I've almost, like, alluded to that, where I'm talking about the financials of a card, and I'm like, "This card is this price with this pop. This card is this price with this pop. Which one makes more sense to buy?" And I've used that term before, which on hindsight really is, like, inadvertently trying to gatekeep where it's like, sure, if you're looking at numbers on a piece of paper, it might make more sense to buy this. But if your favorite character is the other one, who cares? Like, and that's one thing I've tried to step away from is not being like judgmental. Like, I try not to be judgmental with waifus, even though I don't understand it. I'm like, hey, it's just not my thing. But if they love it, how is that any different from me liking a made up bird that has electricity? Like, how is one more crazy than the other?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes just as simple like, I don't buy modern cards because for me, like I don't buy modern slabs because I just think all alt arts, put them in a binder, they look beautiful together.
Mm,
But you know what? If somebody really, really loves one of these new alt arts and it's maybe of an obscure Pokemon and they just want the perfect version of that card, I'm not gonna blame them. But it's like you said, when you start getting to thousands of dollar cards, and that's why the Moonbryon is so heated, is it's like if that card were to ever crash, some people are going to get absolutely destroyed. That's why when we're even $200, I still think that's kind of expensive for a card for a lot of cards out there. Even
mhm.
$200, if it goes down to 50, that's not that's not terrible. But if you're buying a $1,300 card and it goes down to a few hundred, that's a big difference.
Yeah,
Or if you buy
like,
multiple to speculate, yeah.
mhm. No, I definitely agree. Like, there's even though there's no inherent value in a card, I buy it like with the almost like expectation that it will have some value. Like, if I'm spending $200 on a card, I don't need it to go up in value, but I'm like, hopefully in 10 years somebody's also still interested in this, because it's like, even though I like it and I'm buying it for myself, if I watch that go to zero, it's pretty hard to do. But it's like what you're saying with the Moonbryon, like, when a card gets so expensive and there's so many of them, it's like, how many of those people that are spending 4 figures on this modern card can afford that to go to zero? Like, the collections, like, I think you and I are both pretty fiscally responsible, where it's like, if my collection goes to zero, it would suck and I'd be devastated, but I would get by. I'm still paying my bills. I'm still putting food on my table. But it's like, how many, if there's 8,000 Moonbryon 10s and they're still selling for, I don't even know what it's at right now, let's say 1,200, how many of those 8,000 people can stomach a $1,200 card going to zero? And that's what scares me more, is it's like what you're saying is, it's like, that's a lot of money. Like, I don't know,
And
like,
are people and then are people just gonna leave the hobby? They're like, oh, that's what ruins Pokemon for them. That Moonbryon burn, that's another layer to it. We don't need to get into that, but sorry, I kind
yeah,
of cut you off.
I feel like it's how long into a live will someone bring up Moonbryon? It's like, you can, like, it's like a drinking game, but it has to happen. But I mean, that's pretty much everything I kind of want to touch. The last thing is, we've kind of touched on it here and there, but I just gonna have to talk about the idea of it feels like the hobby is in a better place now. It feels like there's less people are less focused exclusively on money. Like money is still important because you need it to buy what you want, but I feel like in 2021 and stuff like that, it was it was hard to just be a true collector because there was everyone was just talking about like what's going to go up, what's going to go down. But I feel like now I see a lot more conversation just about art, about the history, about their inherent interest. I feel like that's kind of happened a lot more recently, which I really like to see.
I would say it's really tough to tell because maybe what it could just be is that the scalpers and the flippers, maybe they're not as loud right now. So maybe these collectors were always around, but you just saw all of that so much and that they left. So now it seems like there's more collectors,
Yeah.
or it's just that the scalpers got out. A lot of the scalpers did. I do believe that most. I think the majority of people who are around are just sealed investors and flippers. At least the people who care more it's mostly about the money.
Mhm.
I think. Hmm. So I think that the hobby is in a better place than it was a year or two ago for sure. I don't want to act like too much of a negative Nancy, but I think that one thing I've thought about a lot. I want to get your opinion on it. Is that with some of these flippers, when I think about it, or some of these speculators, and sometimes I guess it's to touch on the last point too, like who's buying this? Who's buying this 10? Who's it kind of it makes you think of, are the people who are entering the hobby maybe in 2020, is the rate of those collectors getting more into the hobby, finding out about binders and becoming more financially responsible, not FOMOing out, is that happening at a rate faster than noobs, like people who are just buying the first thing they see? And how do you think? Uh, like, what is your opinion on that? Which one do you think is happening faster? Did I
So
word
you're
that?
saying, are you asking like if collectors are increasing higher or if speculators are leaving faster?
I was saying, like, my worry for flippers and stuff is that, do you think the rate of like new collectors entering the hobby, and they're just buying whatever they see, so they're probably more likely to buy a CGC 10 of a a character rare the first week it comes out because they just have to have it? Are those kind of people entering the hobby still faster than these collectors that maybe got burned in 2020 and they were new in 2020, and now they're more seasoned, and that's why for you, you're saying that you notice more people are getting into binders and there's less speculators and it seems more natural? What do you think on that?
I don't know, it's hard for me to really tell because I feel like in the like the echo chambers that I listen to, like I feel like everyone is so similar and they're pretty much everyone is seasoned. Like a new collector, let me know in the comments if anyone's watching that is new. But I feel like people that are new collectors aren't finding their way to my channel or Dan Catch 'em All Collectibles or stuff. So I feel like the people that I watch, it's hard for me to really gauge that. But I do think there's a lot I've heard multiple stories of like, oh, like 151 is bringing people in, like just like Evolution's brought people in. I do think there's a lot of new collectors, but I do think the hobby as a whole is kind of slowly maturing, even with those new people entering. Because like also like when those new people enter, like you were kind of alluding to, it's much easier for them to learn than it was 3 years ago. Like, there's so much information out now. If someone enters the hobby today, they can become, like, seasoned or experienced on however you would judge that. They can reach that point much faster than somebody, coming in 2017. So, I think there are a lot of new people, but um, I think they have a lot better resources, so they're making less poor financial decisions. So
Yeah, you answer that well, because that's the reason why I asked that. Is I think that would spell the demise of flippers, where maybe there's not as many newer collectors coming in, and some of these, and then the collectors that were new maybe 2 years ago, a year ago, they're like, well, hold on, they're finding out about pops, they're seeing how easy it is to grade some of these cards, or maybe they just start grading themselves.
mhm.
And they start finding value. Simao mentioned it. They start looking at these character rares, or just cheaper cards in the set. They don't feel the need to collect the entire set. They don't feel the need to buy the top chases every time the set releases. So, they start learning that bit by bit. If those type of people, that knowledge, like you're saying, people are learning it faster now with social media and all these influencers, and the research is just information so much more readily available than maybe 10 years ago. Then I
Mhm.
think some of these flippers, I don't know where they're going to be.
Yeah, I do think it's almost impossible to unless like I don't want to say almost impossible because that's not true. We've seen that with Japanese sets and stuff like that, but there's very specific things that you can successfully flip now. Like gone are the days of being able to flip the newest set. Like I remember like when COVID was huge when COVID was huge, when COVID was happening, like when Lost Thunder came out, you could if you could find one on the shelf, you could flip it online for double. And it's like that is gone. So I feel like a lot of the flippers that like put in no effort had to leave, but you can still successfully flip there's a few guys that are in the space that pretty readily flip, but you have to be very calculated. So the people that are doing it are more than likely organic collectors anyway. So yeah, it's
Yeah,
my
I
take.
think sealed collecting has definitely taken a hit. We don't really need to talk about, yeah,
Yeah,
it's interesting that you brought that up. It got really bad recently. So,
yeah, but yeah, I think this was a good lab. We
oh,
covered.
I do have one more question if I
Oh
want
yeah.
to end it, because I never asked you about like cracking cards for your binder. So,
Mhm.
it seems like you like collecting some of the older stuff. Is there anything that have you ever thought about just having older binder collections, or are you said that you still don't trust having cards that are $100 or
Yeah, I mean,
Neo nines, you could technically crack those in. I think that's a bad example, but yeah.
yeah, I mean, I haven't really cracked cards for a binder because usually when I'm filling out a binder, I just pick up I just picked up raw ones that online. But I think the reason why I haven't made a binder for EX era is because there are so many cards that are so valuable. Like sure, there's a lot of hollows and EXs that are less than $100, but like if I'm trying to make an unseen forces binder, I don't want a $700 Lugia EX raw, unless it's already in moderately played condition. But if it's like a PSA 8 caliber, I don't personally want that in a binder because like, I know people that I feel like this it's more susceptible to damage, but that's why I like the ultra modern binders because it's like, oh, when I'm building it, these cards are $5 a piece. So
So with slabs, because like how many slabs do you think you have now? How do you like not how you store them, but how do you display them? Do you just like pull them out every once in a while and just take a look at them? Because that's one worry I have is like, what am I going to do if I have 50 slabs? Like, how am I going to be looking through all of them? Am I just going to switch up the displays? Because I don't
yeah,
always display them because my office is kind of like direct sunlight, so I can't really. It's not the best idea to.
yeah. For how I store, I just have a little like one of those little cases for slabs, and that's how I store ones that
Where'd you
aren't
get
being
that, by the
displayed.
way? I am looking for a slab storage.
I have to look up. I can also I don't know
That's
the
specifically
brand.
for slabs, or is that just a random? Is that just a
Yeah,
kit?
it's made for slabs.
Okay,
It's a company that's sprung up recently, but it's like 30 or $40 for a case, and that I think each pocket stores like 25, so it's a
okay.
100 slab case. But that's how I store them. But in terms of like displaying and really enjoying the cards, I there isn't a great way to do that with slabs, like with a quantity of them. Like obviously, like I have a few that I keep on my desk, like just at home. Like I'll have like one,
Mhm.
like just and I'll switch that out here and there. But in terms of like you can't really display a set unless you want to dedicate a lot of space to it, which I do think that is where binders can kind of really do better than or like there might be more desirable than a slab. But like I don't have one, but I've seen like it's like a picture frame that's like maybe 4 feet by 4 feet that has little shelves in it, and you can display a bunch there. I've seen that, but like, yeah, but like, yeah, I probably have like maybe like 200-ish slabs,
Phew.
and it's a lot,
Yeah.
but and one downside is it's like a consumer kind of thing where it's like half of them I probably don't look at every month,
I was
but
going
I'll
to ask
probably
you, how many of them are strictly PC?
I would say
Estimate.
maybe I would say maybe like 40. Exclude I have a bunch of like EX era hollows, and that's like a PC, but like I'm not really attracted to like the individual card. I've just been kind of like accumulating cheap ones. But in terms of like cards that like I would want to keep for like decades, it's probably like less than 40
Okay,
in
that's
my
not too bad because you said that you didn't look at half of them, and I was like, well, maybe it's because um, they're not part of your PC. Which, yeah,
yeah.
that's yeah, I totally get that because I
I mean,
just
there's a few cards that I'll probably look at like a few times a week. Like my favorite card is I have a 1952 Jackie Robinson. This is the most expensive card I've ever purchased. And like cards like that are like I'm like, oh, this is like a museum piece. Like things like that are probably I think eventually what I want to whittle my collection down to, where I think 200 is way too much. And like previously I had this idea of, oh, I want to collect all of the X era. Then I realized how daunting that was and how many slabs they'll just have in a closet. So I think I've kind of stepped away from that because I realized like I'm not going to enjoy that. But yeah, how about you? Like, do you have like an end goal? Like, I want 20 really nice cars. Like, do you have anything like that?
I think I'm just going to probably I would say out of like my 15 slabs, there's probably two of them where I definitely don't really care about them that much. They're just pretty to look at.
Hmm.
But I haven't gotten there yet, and I actually that's my biggest question with my collection is how many more I need to start thinking about how many more slabs am I really interested in? Like the Neo 9s. Is it better to just make a binder of that, maybe crack 8s or am I gonna have 20 Neo 9s? And I don't like Neo 9s as much as my other cards. I just think they're pretty cool just to have, and the price makes sense. So
Hmm.
yeah, but I kind of forgot. I'd be down to talk about sports cards one of these times. I guess my my last question is, what's the oldest card you have? Just the oldest. Give me sports.
Um,
I'm assuming it's sports, or maybe it's a red
yeah,
card.
there's one card that I can't find right now.
Is it the gentleman card? I think I was
Yeah,
watching.
that's my
Yeah.
oldest card. It's an 1888 Allen and Ginter card, and it was like a random assortment of like cultures. It'd be like the cards were like Australian man or like British tennis player. It was a very random. But my oldest like sports card is I have a boxing card from 1910. Um, a guy named uh, Jason Jeffries. I don't personally know. I didn't know much about him until I saw the card, but I just love the look of vintage cards. But the oldest card of like somebody that's like noteworthy is probably my Jackie Robinson.
Are those older cards, if I wanted to get, maybe fairly, not too famous, but I mean, it doesn't even have to be famous, just like a 1910 card, very poor condition, but maybe like of a random sports player. I'm really interested in getting into really just old cards, just historical cards, like
Yeah.
not maybe historical for the hobby, just old cards. Is that really pricey? Do you have, because I do not know too much about that.
It's so like this guy, Jason Jeffries, he was the heavyweight champion of the world in 1910. This is his prize fight card. So in terms of like old boxing, it's a big card. It's like this wasn't a Joe Schmo. He was a heavyweight champion, and this card is a PSA 2 from 1910, and I probably spent 60 or $70 on it. But the problem with these vintage cars is like there's like 12 of these in the pop report. So it's like if you can't like my problem was I couldn't look for a specific card because they just like there's so few of them because they're so old and they're not just
And
readily
then
being
in
made with hands.
raw, with raw, are
Yeah.
you just too worried for fakes? Is that what
Yeah,
it is?
I only buy graded because yeah, there's like T206. Are you familiar with that set for baseball?
No,
It's like
I don't really know baseball, really.
it's a 1910 baseball set and it's like it's one of the more premier sets, but it's like I would never buy a raw one, even though some of the cards are only like $50, but they're just so faked. Because like old cards, it's just cardboard. There's no hollow, there's no nothing. So like, but yeah, like when I was like searching for these old cards, I couldn't be like, oh, I want the 1910 Jason Jeffries card because it's not being sold. I would just search up like vintage boxing card and just scroll through a bunch of crap
Okay,
until I
okay.
found something I liked. And it's like maybe there's a better way to do it, but since they're so random, it's so hard to like find a specific thing. So I would just like cast a wide net.
What about okay, this is actually the last question. How much you know about football cards? Because I do wanna I've thought about it, like, is there any 60s cards? Like, if I wanna get like historical
Um,
Packers or I've thought about
I
because I don't
so I
I'm
don't
more
have
about
any
picks
60s.
too, so I kinda wanna get some
Mhm.
information before I start looking at graded, you know?
I don't have any 60s cards. Like, there are ones, like, there's, like, a Jim Brown rookie card from, like,
Oh,
60
okay.
whatever. Those ones are really
Yeah.
expensive, but, like, I what I've done with vintage is I try and go for autographs of players that have died. So, like, I have a Walter Payton autograph. It's hard to see his auto because it's on a really busy card, but, like, it's one of the old blue autograph
Where's
PSA
the
labels.
auto? Where is it?
It's
Is it
it's diagonal right here.
Oh, I see it, I see it, okay.
Yeah. So, like,
It's
that's
this
one thing
one.
that I'm interested with vintage cards is it's like, I don't really go after condition rarity because it's so hard. Like, condition is so tough with those years. I'm just like, "Oh, if I can get an auto for whatever, $100 of this player." That's kind of what I've gone for, but yeah, there's so many options for, like, vintage sports. I've gone for a little bit of modern, like 2000 Tom Brady cards, stuff like that. But,
That's really cool, okay. Once I slow down in Pokemon, I'm
this
definitely gonna try and get into some
this
sports. Like, having a Walter Pay like, I thought Walter Payton cards would be through the roof.
No, this was actually during the boom. I bought this in, like, 2021. It's an au and it was $180 for his autograph, but, like, of a not like and he died in 1999, so
What's
it's,
that
like,
grading? Is that
autographs.
SGC?
No,
Or
it's PSA. It's just
okay.
PSA used to I don't know why my camera isn't
You and your
focusing on
ring light. No, I
dude,
can still see the top. I can still see it.
okay. So it says PSA up there. It says PSA/DNA. Which
Okay.
is so it's they do that they used to do that for autographed cards, and now they just do the little thingy on the side where it says auto. But, yeah, I think on another live, if you wanna talk about vintage sports or just sports cards in general, I could go on and on about that.
It would honestly just be a Q&A for you. I don't know. I'd just be asking a bunch of I might do a little research beforehand, but I'd definitely be down. But yeah,
And
thanks
if
for having
you
sorry?
I was gonna say, if you know anybody else in the space that's like, I kind of like, I'm probably 75% Pokemon, 25% football. If you know somebody who's like also into sports, we could also get them on and we can bounce ideas off them. Because if we
I'll
can talk to someone who's like sports is their thing, they'd know a lot more than I do. I kind of just like I'm a casual sports collector.
So football is your favorite out of them? Because I thought it was I
Yes,
don't know why I thought it was baseball, but yeah, football is my thing.
baseball probably my third. It's probably football, basketball, baseball.
Okay.
But for baseball, just like there's so much more history. Like you can't get 1930 football cards, but you can get 1930 baseball cards all day. So
Okay.
yeah. But this was a fun live though. I think yeah, next time if we can grab a third person, that'd be fun to bring someone on with a different perspective on things.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I mean,
Of
I wish I had maybe some more cards to show off, but I feel like we talked about a lot. We did talk
Mhm.
about a lot, and yeah, I can't promise I can find a third sports guy. That might be on your
Yeah.
end.
I'll ask
I'll look
around.
through some discords or something, but we'll
Yeah.
see.
And I promise next live I will not have my ring light. I'm gonna try something
Your little
else.
ring light there. Yeah, he's
I can
always
actually show a card. But yeah, yeah. Oh, Samal's a soccer fan. We can get him on. That'd be interesting.
I was gonna throw that in. I just started collecting Cristiano Ronaldo cards, just in a binder, just
I
any
mean,
condition, just all stickers, whatever. So
here's some out. If you email me, I think through my YouTube, you can email me. If you want to email me your info, if you want to get talking about something, I'd love to have you on. I don't know much about soccer, so that'd probably be you guys talking, but I'd love to just get a different perspective on things.
yeah,
Cool.
that'd
Yeah.
be
So
great.
I'm gonna end this live, but it was great talking to you, man.
Yeah, you have a good night, man.
See ya.
See ya.